Hey, Wembong World Entertainment, and it's finally here. Frankenstein, the Benicio del Toro's version on Netflix. And the first thing, this by the way will be the review, I'll do as non-spoiler as possible, even though everyone pretty much knows the story of Frankenstein. But it's incredible to think that this thing was made for Netflix and not for the big screen. Now I know they did release it on the big screen, but it's like in a handful of theatres and there's like one or two showings. This thing should have been on the big screen from the word go. This thing, not just is it stunning looking, it's fantastic. I loved watching this movie. Probably ain't going to end up watching it again. Hope the fact that they did release it, on this big screen in a small capacity, I'm hoping that means they'll lead to releasing it on Blu-ray, because I definitely want this on Blu-ray. This thing was great. Performances across the board, fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. The look, the visuals, everything, absolutely fantastic. Stunning. And it's crazy because the colour palette, he manages to do this incredible thing of very muted colours, but they pop. So like you're getting settings where it's like dark and dull and grey and stuff, and then someone will have something red on them, and the red like pops, like it really stands out, and yet the color is still actually muted. It's not this overly bright red type of thing. It's incredible. And I didn't realize that Charles Dance was in this. Now he's only in the beginning of the movie. He plays Victor's father, and he's very brutal. He despises Victor and the mother. They're not what he wanted and stuff, and he's a doctor. He's meant to be the best doctor in the field and stuff like this. Then you just kind of get this performance that's so short and yet so impactful from him as well. Charles Dance is great. You love seeing him and stuff. I'm pretty sure the first thing I ever saw him in, or at least that I saw him in, that I could remember seeing him then in other things, was, believe it or not, Last Action Hero. Remember him in Last Action Hero? Now, I may had seen The Golden Child before that, but didn't recognise him until Last Action Hero. Christopher Waltz is in this as well. Now, he's got somewhat of a cameo as well, but it's quite a big role. Up to the point of the monster becoming alive, basically. So he's in there. Ralph Ineson is in there as well, very briefly as well. Lars Mikkelsen is in here as well. He plays the captain of the ship. I always thought it was a Russian ship that was meant to be stuck in the ice, but it doesn't seem to be. Where are they from? I think was it Norway or something they were saying? I can't quite remember. But the structure of the movie is very interesting as well. So what is the overall story for this version of Frankenstein? Well, it starts pretty much at the end, and it's Victor being found by the captain and his crew on the boat that's trapped in the ice as he's running from the monster. By the way, that should be the other thing that people really start to try and understand, is Victor Frankenstein is the doctor, not the monster. The monster does not actually have a name. It's just the monster. But he's tracking him. And the way the movie is structured is, once they get Victor onto the boat, he starts telling the captain the story. So while he's telling them, we go back and we start with him as a child, and the brutality of the father in teaching him science, basically, of the body and stuff, and how brutal he gets if he gets an answer wrong and stuff. And him saying to the father, I will be you one day, but much more as well. And the irony is, that's exactly what happens with him. He does actually become the father, but not in the way he thinks, because he thinks the intelligence and the success and stuff, and it's the cruelty that really comes in. And that is one of the great structures of this movie, is Victor starts off as a very sympathetic character and basically becomes a villain. He really does become the monster, and then he kind of reverts back, whereas the monster is very sympathetic throughout the whole thing. Everything that happens to him, it makes sense why he reacts the way he does. As for the monster, Victor's telling his story, and we go back every now and again to him in the captain's cabin on the ship, telling the captain the story of him creating this thing. And then we also get, and that's called part 1, Victor's story. And then we get part 2, which is the monster's story. So we get told the story from Victor's point of view, but then we get told the other side of it, which is the monsters, from the monster's point of view. But it's interesting what they do with the monster, because they don't start the story from the time he becomes alive. It's told from the time he escapes the tower. So it's great the way it's structured. Now, the look of the monster, I think there's a few people who have a bit of an issue with it, but I understand it, what Guillermo was going for with the look. So his look, he's not all super scarred. Like, you know, the scars are kind of very disfiguring and stuff like that, even though he is disfigured because he's made up of all different parts of people. It's the fact that all the lines are very symmetrical, they're very straight and stuff like that. But when you realize how much of a perfectionist Victor is, it makes sense that these lines are straight like that he would want it to be perfection, because he's trying to conquer death. So they do a thing. Now, it's an incredibly subtle effect, but my god, did it stand out for me, and I loved it. And it's just this tiny little effect that they do, and it's a little glint in the monster's left eye. So when he's in the shadow, you just notice this little yellowy kind of orangey glint from his eye. And I just loved that effect. And anytime light would strike him, that glint would happen. And it's something so small and subtle, and yet so effective as well. Especially when the monster's in the hood and the big coat and stuff like that. And the structure of how the monster starts learning how to speak properly and stuff like that was great. And it's quite brutal in the violence in it. They don't hold back with the violence. Now, some of it looks a little kind of oh, that's clearly like just a dummy and stuff, but then there's other moments where it really is kind of like, ooh, that's a bit wincy, you know. There's stuff with a few people that happens with, and it's like, oh, the idea of how Victor gets bodies to use as well was crazy, because he was going to executions and just checking out the guys before they're getting hanged, and he's like, no, this one, no, that one will do, that will do, you know. And then the bodies he had to use then as well were part of the war, and, you know, he's marking the bodies so they know which ones to take, because, you know, they're all damaged and stuff like that. Maya Gott, of course, is in this as well. She plays Elizabeth, who is Victor's brother's fiance, and she kind of becomes an obsession for Victor as much as the monster. But the monsters, it doesn't, people might point out that it's a romantic part and stuff like that. I didn't really get it as it's meant to be a romantic part, as much more of the monster wanting companionship. And of course, that is the thing that the monster wanted after realizing that he basically can't be killed and stuff, was a companion. And that's why he was always hunting down Victor Frankenstein, was he wanted him to create a companion for him. And that very much is the structure of the story. So the story is great, and the way it's structured and the way it's done and stuff is great, but the visuals, the sets and stuff are fantastic. There's one or two wonky bits with CGI. Mainly, the one that really sticks out is when the monster's escaping the tower. Like, it doesn't look terrible, it's just, it's very obvious that that's all CG. And some of the wolves, that there's a scene with wolves that if you're watching it, you'll see they're quite clear. Like, the animals are quite clear CGI, but everything else just looks fantastic. Now, I have no idea where they actually shot this movie, but clearly they were in some locations with some of it. Obviously, they probably digitally added a couple of mountains or something, but it still looks fantastic. Looks beautiful. And again, the color palette and the way they used that was fantastic. The way there'd be, like, in darkness, but, you know, very dark colors, and then the sun would start shining through, and just It was a very dark orange as opposed to that real bright light that comes through. Looked fantastic. Performances, again, across the board were great. David Bradley is actually in this. And weirdly, people who are wondering, who's David Bradley? He was the guy who initiated the Red Wedding in Game of Thrones. He was in The Strain, the vampire TV series. He's in Harry Potter. He's the caretaker in Harry Potter. It's insane. He looks younger in this movie than he actually is. Now, I'll be honest with you. I thought he was dead. I really actually thought he was dead. I thought he died a good few years ago. And I'm always amazed when he pops up and things. It's like, Jesus, did he not die? He didn't die. He's 83 years of age. But he actually looks younger somehow in this movie. And no, it's not makeup. Like, he's got a great big beard and long hair in this. But he plays the blind guy. And it's just like, it's his voice that you're like, wait a minute, is that who I think it is? And sure enough, it is. And you're like, that's insane. So, like, the fact that these type of characters, or actors I should say, are popping up in these type of roles, you know, even the likes of Ralph Ineson being in here, and he's like one scene, but it's a crazy scene as well. And the effects and stuff on like the animated bodies and stuff like that, it's just great. So overall, because I won't go into much else now because it'd be too spoilery, but the overall look, feel and everything in this movie, it's fantastic. Oh, by the way, I should say actually, the guy who actually plays the monster, Jacob Elordi, not just was he great in it, I had no idea that this dude was so tall. He's 6'5", and he's only 28 years of age. I didn't know he was only 28, but he was brilliant as the monster as well. Absolutely brilliant. This is a design I would very much like to get a 1/6 hot toy off. I know they're releasing a 1/10 scale figure, which looks great. Might get that, but give me a 1/6 of this monster as well. That would be fantastic. Again, the violence and stuff, very brutal, so couldn't recommend this movie enough. Absolutely fantastic. Loved it. And I do hope that they release this thing on Blu-ray, because I would love to get a steel box of this thing. Absolutely brilliant and beautiful movie. So if you haven't checked it out, I'd highly recommend you actually check it out. So with that, by the way, if you have checked it out, do let me know what you think of it. And with that, I shall leave it there for this one. So do like, share, subscribe and all that good stuff. Cheers. I'll catch you in the next one.